Great, we can go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the National Operations Center of Excellence webinar, Road Weather Spotlight Series, Building and Maturing a Snow Fence Program. My name is Kyla Elzinga, and I'll help facilitate today's webinar. The National Operations Center of Excellence offers a variety of resources to support the transportation systems management and operations community. You can go to NOCoE's website at transportationops.org to browse through links for TSMO resources and news. Previous webinar recordings and case studies can be accessed from the NOCoE resources page. A few logistics for today's webinar. We are recording this webinar, and the recording will be available on NOCoE's website. All the attendees are encouraged to stay engaged by using the Q&A feature for questions and the chat feature for comments. These are both on the bottom or the top of your screen, depending on your Zoom program orientation. We will have a question and answer session at the end of the presentations, so if you have any questions, we encourage you to enter them in the Q&A area as they come to mind at any time. Additionally, please feel free to share your name and agency in the chat to say hello to your peers. Now I'll hand it off to our moderator, Jeremy McGuffey with the Federal Highway Administration Office of Operations to get us started. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kyla, and welcome everyone to another edition of the Road Weather Spotlight Series. Today's presentation is on today's webinar is on building and maturing a snow fence program. We'll have a series of presenters from a variety of backgrounds that represent different areas geographically and within the field of practice as far as deployment of snow fences, the methodology behind them and innovations in snow fencing and blowing snow control. My name is Jeremy McGuffey. I'm with the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm responsible for the Road Weather Management Program. Real quick before we get started, I'll give you if you're not familiar with the program, kind of what we do. The Road Weather Management Program, we're responsible for mitigating the impact of severe weather across the surface transportation network, ultimately improving safety and mobility. We do this through a couple of different methods. One is stakeholder engagement and outreach, similar to what we're doing today with these webinars. We do other virtual events such as roundtables and more targeted groups, forums on different topics. We also do in-person events such as peer exchanges and an annual stakeholder meeting. We also do road weather research and development. That's kind of the core behind the program. We've come out with a lot of great tools and programs over the years because of that. Additionally, we do technology transfer and deployment support. So when these great ideas and innovations come about, we try and get them out to the field as quickly as possible and as low cost as possible. And then finally, we also do training, particularly through NHI, the National Highway Institute. We have a few training modules on there that are specific to road weather management. Next slide. Before we get started, I do have some disclaimers. These are just some standard language that we throw on all of our presentations that come out of FHWA, but I do have to cover it. So this presentation was created and is being co-presented by both the Federal Highway Administration and an outside entity. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are the presenters and do not necessarily reflect those of FHWA or the US DOT. The contents do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the US DOT. The U.S. government does not endorse products or manufacturers. Trademarks or manufacturers' names appear in this presentation only because they are considered essential to the objective of the presentation. They are included for informational purposes only and are not intended to reflect a preference, approval, or endorsement of any product or entity. Except for the statutes and regulations cited, the contents of this presentation do not have the force and effect of law and are not meant to bind the states or the public in any way. This presentation is intended only to provide information regarding existing requirements under the laws or agency policies. Next slide. All right, for today's agenda, we have 4 presenters on building and maturing a snow fence program. The first presenter up will be Peter Wisniewski with Wisconsin DOT. Then we'll have Craig Bargfried with Iowa DOT, Dan Gullickson with Minnesota Department of Transportation, and then finally Kathy Elanius with Wyoming DOT. And our first presenter is Peter Wisniewski. Peter is a professional engineer or a highway maintenance engineer for the Bureau of Highway Maintenance at Wisconsin DOT. He has managed the statewide drift control program since 2013. Peter, I'll hand things off to you.
Well, hello everyone. Like Jeremy mentioned, I'm Peter Wisniewski, an engineer with the Department of Transportation of Wisconsin. Um, there's a lot to cover in these few slides that I have. As you mentioned, I've been in charge of this program since 2013, and we've come a long way since the beginning, but we also have a long way to go, in my opinion, on where we could be. Um, so starting things off, where we've come from. Back in 2013, I was tasked with addressing drift control issues across the state of Wisconsin. Uh, Prior to me taking over that role, it was a bit of a hodgepodge effort with lapses in decades and areas. Uh, and it was hit or miss on whether things were being done and recording of where installations were happening and how that process was going. And once I took over, as I dove deeper into this, it gained a life of its own and built into the program we have now. First slide, please. So getting started, these items themselves, they didn't all happen, as they are in the bullets here of one line after another. These were all happening simultaneously as we were developing this program out. So one of the first things we wanted to do was figure out, well, where do we have drift control around in the state currently? So our first effort was to drive our backbone, which is our interstates and our freeway routes, and figure out where we had existing drift control. And throughout that process, we were also going through previous projects and reviewing those for anything that had vegetation involved that was labeled as drift control, and verifying whether or not for one, was installed, if it's still there was a big factor, because some of the programs or projects that had them were quite old, and there have been different could have been improvements since then, as they went through corridors and had reconstructs and things like that. Throughout this process, it took several years to also map all the remaining highways. So Google Earth was pretty crucial for this, combing through every highway, looking for the known pattern when you're seeing it from a satellite image, that staggering pattern for drift control, and marking all that, labeling all that, as well as anything that could be perceived as drift control, and dropping down into that, say that street view, and looking to see what vegetation looks like, at least from those images from above, because what we wanted to make sure is if there was, say, an open field to the west or to the north, or depending on the highway's angle, we want to make sure we capture any of existing vegetation too, because the last thing we want is to potentially remove that in the future and then find out that it was indeed performing as drift control. Other things we're doing that I was doing was talking to other states with established programs. MnDOT was a big help. New York DOT was a big help. Iowa also. Then looking at the studies and the guidance that was already out there. You have Dr. Tabler, he's pretty infamous with drift control out of Wyoming. New York had a large study on living snow fence, as well as literature from Iowa and Colorado, and several studies from University of Minnesota, and literature from MnDOT. And all that really helps lay the groundwork to get things moving forward for the program, of what's out there, what we have, and how we can move forward. Next slide. And so over multiple years, again, none of this happens overnight, was building those relationships, and establishing rapport inside our own department. So I'd say it probably took like 5 years or more before I actually got further down in this list. Initially starting with our regional maintenance staff, the county highway staff, and those different entities, letting them know what our effort was, where we were trying to go with it, what its purpose was, using a lot of that same, again, literature and studies to bring that forward, because there was a lot of turnover. A lot of people forgot these prior methods of dealing with these issues with drifting. Instead, the main focus became plowing it rather than seeing if we can't trap or capture some of that off the highway to prevent these issues. Then as I got going and developed these relationships with regional staff, that eventually kind of bled over into our projects department, where maintenance staff was bringing this up to projects where they were having issues, and through that reached our safety engineers. And as soon as it got to their ears, they really didn't have this method of dealing with these items before. So much of what they were working with was, say, clear pavement or rain, versus what do we do about snow and ice. And so that led into that conversation with them, and eventually had some presentations. And so it was eye-opening for them of what we could potentially do. And that helped pull in even more efforts from the project side of the house. And then as things got going on, and there's been this large emphasis on pollinators across the country, we started looking at that. And with what we're doing here at WSDOT of using native vegetation, then that helped open the door with the environmental folks. We're establishing habitat. We're improving our corridor in those ways. And so we started getting the backing of them as well. And in the meantime, we're just constantly hammering the drift control and what we can do, and keeping that dialogue going, which is very important. So I just basically never let up as we were going across the department. And eventually over time, now there's pretty much the whole department is pretty well aware of drift control and its benefits. Next slide. So throughout this, we were looking at how we were doing things and encouraging improvement. And there's always room to improve as we're doing things. So one of the first ones, like paper to practice. I love this photo from Dr. Tabler of a drift in Wyoming. And now in Wisconsin, we don't have anything like that. So that's that paper to practice thing of we have these guidelines, but what are we actually dealing with? Our state doesn't look the same as some of these studies, and our regions don't have the same conditions. The southern Wisconsin is different than the north woods of Wisconsin. How it's being impacted and what those situations look like are different. The fact that we don't buy land for these projects or easements to put drift control off site, that leads into different issues. And so it's all of how can we improve our process and deal with the constraints that we currently have. And then inside projects, it was recognizing patterns that come across, like being involved in projects from the start and seeing, say, that they're putting up putting a guardrail in certain areas, especially along abutments and where the road is elevated. How can we get them to put in some kind of measure where we're seeing a pattern of drift control later, or drifting caused by those guardrails later? So what can we do to address those and be proactive instead of reactive to them? And same with if we see that they're removing vegetation along the highway, let's take a look at what's going on and not create an improvement on the highway that ends up opening up a safety issue later for us to deal with winter. Same for improvements of installation and establishment, and creating better guidelines for better results and methods and cost savings. And again, a lot of that helped with talking with neighboring states and seeing how they're improving things. And again, testing our methods and finalizing what works. And I think we have a pretty solid method right now of how we have a standard of how we put in at least living snow fence. But again, we're constantly asking, how can we improve? Next slide. So one of the main things I try to do outside of my normal projects that I operate, then it's working with our projects department and verify of the quarters they're in, what if there's existing drift control, if there's a need for drift control, if there is currently drift control there, what can we do to avoid removing it or improving it, adding to it, any of that. Then issues with getting and keeping drift control in projects, certainly living snow fence, vegetation. I don't know if it's this way in other states, but as we're trying to crunch numbers and make projects work inside certain budgets, one of the first things they'll look at is vegetation as a removal, which initially was an issue with living snow fence being in a project where it would get dropped. And instead it was pushing that and getting more people, again, back to that communication thing of having safety engineers, the environmental staff and maintenance really pushing to make sure it stays inside projects. And a lot of that came from pushing the why, the driver safety, all the improvement there, the safety improvements, the pavement life cycle, longevity, and that preventing all the ice damming of the base layers, and just general added wear and tear on the road surface with all the additional plowing and all the additional salts, and to try to keep those roads clear. And then being a resource in the project as far as the design goes, and tracking the progress and the costs, and making sure that I was there to help them along the way. And again, with the safety side of things, we had a major improvement once we had crash factor modification numbers. Then suddenly the safety engineers had some teeth that they could put into ensuring these things stay inside projects. And then it really became a safety improvement along our roadways. And then from the maintenance side, again, that cost reduction of if they're plowing and all the additional salt and wear and tear. For example, if you could get solid numbers on what their existing costs are in certain areas, that's really helpful. For example, I have one was costing an additional $30,000 roughly per year to maintain a 2-mile corridor where there was sections where there was drifting. And with the improvement that we put in, it was the estimated living snow fence would pay for itself within 5 years, which is fantastic. And that's just a 2-mile corridor with some spots through it. And out of the roughly 12,000 miles of highway that WSDOT is in charge of maintaining, I have roughly 700 or 800 miles of recorded known drifting locations, and that was only for half the counties across the state. So even if you extrapolated all that out, the savings across the board, or future savings as these installations pay for themselves, could really add up for maintenance and pavement longevity and salt use. Next slide. And again, with this, we're always trying to improve this. I really like this one with our prairie that we planted. We talking with some of our environmental folks. The process of installing drift control was very similar to what the need was, at least the first couple of years, for installing native seed in a prairie. So we were able to combine those two together, plant the native seed next to the living snow fence, and have them managed at the same time, which greatly reduced the cost of installing these native seed areas. And so we've had a good success with that, and it's something that we're probably going to be moving forward with if the locations are right. Again, innovative thinking of how we can improve these items. A lot of that came from working with what we have inside of our right-of-way, keeping that dialogue going and providing guidance. The biggest factor really for this whole venture has been don't focus on why you can't make something happen, focus on how you can make it happen. And with that, that's what I have. Thanks.
All right, appreciate it, Peter. And if any of you have any questions for Peter or any of the other presenters, I'll remind you, look on your toolbar there for the Q&A button. You can click it and you can type a question in there. And at the end of all the presentations today, we'll have a Q&A. We'll have time set aside for Q&A. Peter, I appreciate it. I really liked the the ideas behind including this on existing capital projects and things that come through an area, because that's often overlooked. So great stuff. Our next presenter is Craig Bargfried with Iowa DOT. Let's see. So yep, there you got it going on. So Craig Bargfried currently serves as the Winter Operations Administrator for the Iowa Department of Transportation. He has served in this position since December 2013 and is responsible for coordinating all facets of winter operations for the department. From 2008 to 2013, Craig worked for the Iowa Emergency Management and the Recovery Bureau as the Deputy Public Assistance Officer and Operations Chief, where he provided assistance to cities, counties, and other state agencies in recovering from natural disasters. Craig, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on the program here today. So I'm going to talk about the Iowa DOT's Cooperative Snow Fence Program. This program has been in effect for many years through the Iowa DOT. And as I will show you here in the later slides, this program has really been very effective and quite a very positive part of our overall winter operations program. Next slide, please. So what are our goals? Ultimately, as we address this program with our field staff, who are our partners in promoting this program and signing farmers up for this program, we tell them we want to focus on areas that are your known trouble spots, areas that are prone to blowing and drifting, very low visibility situations. So ultimately, what we want to do is we want to capture that snow before it lands on the roadway so that we do not have to mechanically plow it off, and we can reduce our salt and other chemical uses on the roadway. And then to increase public safety by reducing blowing and drifting and increasing visibility for the traveling public. Next, please. There are a multitude of benefits to this program, not only to the landowners themselves, but to the DOT and public. One big one for the DOT that we're always interested in is lowering our snow removal cost. And then actually by capturing that snow and not allowing it to land on the pavement, we're actually increasing the life of that pavement by decreasing the freeze-thaw effects on that pavement. Many of the farmers that we have participating in this program have seen the benefits for themselves, and we have lots of repeat customers that work in this program with us year after year after year. Next, please. So our program has a multitude of different options. One thing I will point out here as you look at the different options on this slide is that you don't see living snow fence on here. And the reason that is because within the Iowa DOT, our living snow fence program is managed by the Design Bureau office. They have the funding. They are the ones that do all the planning and coordinating with those living snow fences. In our office that Tina and I manage are these different various options that we promote in our winter snow fence program. Standing corn, standing bales. I'm sure you're going, what in the world is that? Well, as we will talk here, Iowa being a huge agricultural and livestock state, we have a number of farmers that basically round bale corn stalks to use as livestock bedding. So instead of leaving corn, they will store their corn stalk bales in the same area and provide a snow fence opportunity for us there. And then, of course, the standard temporary and permanent snow fence options. Next. Here's some information going back to FY 18 that gives you an idea of the different types of snow fence that we have, along with the total amount of miles that we have each year. As you can see, the last 3 years, we've been pretty consistent in the total amount of miles of standing corn that we have each year. Next. And to give you an idea of program costs, what I've done is, if you notice on the bottom of each one of the bar graphs, I've listed the price per bushel of what we paid for standing corn during that fiscal year. So you can see some of the variations that we experience in the corn price. And I'll talk a little bit more as to later as to how we determine that price. But one question you may have is why such a fluctuation? Well, as you can see, the price fluctuates quite a bit, but also just in the farmers' operations, our amount of miles available and participants fluctuates. And a lot of that is due to corn, soybean rotations. So one year in that area, they may plant corn. The following year, they may plant corn or they may plant soybeans. Typically, it's a corn-soybean rotation. So that's just a natural fluctuation in our program. Next, please. So what are the particulars of the standing corn program? So what we do is we ask that a farmer leave a minimum of 6 to a maximum of 24 rows. And those rows are running parallel to the highway. And we ask that they be approximately at least 200 feet from the edge of the roadway. One thing we also allow farmers is to hand harvest that corn if they choose. In many instances, some of these farmers use this as an opportunity to donate to local FFA chapters, local 4-H clubs, other charitable organizations. Those organizations come out, hand harvest the corn. We don't care if they do that as long as we can still have the stalks and the rows out there standing to do the job in catching that snow. And how we determine our compensation then, we pay the farmer based on yield data. So in the fall, once harvest is complete, our staff go out to the farmers that have expressed interest in the program. They sign them up, they do some measurements, the length, the width of the amount of standing corn that is remaining. They get the yield data from the farmer using either yield monitor information from the farmer's combine, or they use the information that the farmers turn in for their crop insurance program. That's how we determine how many acres and the bushels per acre that the farmer has out there in the field. Then the way our program works is on August 1st, at the close of business on August 1st, I poll 50 grain elevators randomly from across the state of Iowa, and I record what their closing cash price is for for October new crop corn on that day. I use that to determine what an average statewide price is, and then add $2 a bushel to that price as an incentive for the farmers to participate in this program. Standing corn agreements are for 1 year. And in the agreement, we ask that farmers leave the corn standing until at least March 15th each year. Next. So what is our pricing for this year? $5.75, as you can see, is what we determined. And then for the last few years, we've been paying $1 per linear foot for round bales and for temporary snow fence, as well as permanent fence. I like to point out this photo. I love this photo. This fits the bill where you talk about a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we get asked all the time, how effective is this program? Well, as you can see in that photo, the area where they have standing corn has done a very good job of capturing snow. There's lots of storage space left in the ditches. The roadway itself is nice bare pavement. As you look further down in the photo, you can see the area where the standing corn stops, and you can see the drifts on both sides of the roadway and how much snow is captured in those ditches. So when folks ask, is this program effective? We like to show them this photo as well as others that says, well, this picture tells the story. Next. So how do we go about the particulars of signing folks up? The form that you see on the left is what we use for standing corn, and this is basically to record all of the information, number of rows, length, width, milepost information, county and road information, the yield information, and then they calculate what the final payment is going to be to the farmer. The form that you see here on the right is the actual agreement that we fill out and sign with the farmer that says we are going to pay Mr. Farmer X amount of dollars based on the yield and based on the amount of acres that you have left in the field for us. We also have a similar form to the one on the right for temporary fence, standing bales, and for permanent snow fence. Next, please. So how do we promote the program? The promotion of this program is about 99.9% on our local maintenance forces. They know their areas better than we do. They know the people, they know the farmers, they know where their known trouble spots are. So we have built a pamphlet that we give to our field maintenance staff that they take out and they use it as a door opener, if you will, to talk to farmers, try to recruit new farmers into the program. As I mentioned, we have a lot of long-standing participants in this program. So basically, in those instances, we go out and just verify that the farmer is willing to participate again. A lot of times this promotion is done right now, obviously, for next year. And so as the farmer is harvesting and they're starting to make plans for what they're going to plant in each area and what type of crop they're going to plant, it gives us an opportunity to talk to them about this program so that they can be thinking about that as they're making their crop decisions for the following year. As you can also see here, we have developed some signage that we post out in the areas where we have standing corn. It's just one way, another way to promote the program and kind of give some recognition to the farmers that are participating. We get a lot of feedback that farmers get a lot of thank yous from their neighbors in participating, which ultimately results in an increase in public safety because of the reduction in the blowing, drifting, and visibility points that I talked about earlier. Next. So the other option we have been really promoting here recently is permarail. The reason for that is we do find from time to time we have farmers that, yeah, I would love to participate in the program. I see the benefits, but I really don't want to hassle with having to bring my combine back out of the shed to combine a small area and then have to go through the labor of cleaning it back up for storage for the summertime. We've promoted the permanent railing fence in a number of these instances, and we've had a lot of interest and a lot of actually participation in this program. As you can see, it is very effective in capturing snow and basically doing the same thing as the standing corn does as well. One nice thing about this program is that if a farmer does agree to this, he's really not giving up a lot of land for us to install this on his farm. If you go to the next one, please. It just gives you a pretty good perspective of some new railing fence that we installed in our Ashton garage, which is up in northwest Iowa. So really, they're able to farm around this, and it's really not taking up a lot of acreage. One thing that we do point out with this program is that if a farmer agrees to participate with us in a perma-rail fencing program, we like to sign at a minimum a 10-year agreement. Preferably, we'd like to go up to a 15 to a 20-year agreement, just so that we can recoup some of the cost for the fencing, which right now is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $60, $65 a linear foot to install. We do the installation, we do the maintenance. So in the fall of the year, those garages that have this type of fence, once harvest is completed, they'll get permission from the farmer to go out there, check everything, make sure everything is nice and snug and ready for the winter season. We have lots of options. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. We have lots of options, as you can see in our program. Our program has been very effective. We really believe that we've been able to reduce our salt usage in these areas. We've created a better environment for the traveling public. And as you can see in this last slide here, here's an example of the round bales that we talked about and how effective they are in trapping snow as well. Jeremy, that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Yeah, Craig, I truly appreciate that. There is actually one question in the Q&A box. If you want to click on that, there's an option for you to type the answer in there and respond to them.
Will do.
For everyone else on here, if you have questions for Craig, I know he might have to hop off here early, so if you do have questions, just type them in the answers pod there, and we'll get them to Craig. Or you can reach out to Craig yourself. I'm sure we can get you in contact with him. Craig, by the way, great presentation. One thing that I've struggled with, and I know that a lot of the other DOTs probably struggled with, is the living fencing and convincing property owners to let you do the installs, or just leaving their crops up. So that was a great job on incentivizing folks to let you do that. All right. Our next presenter is Dan Gullickson with the Minnesota DOT. Dan is a University of Minnesota forestry graduate with over 35 years of experience working with public and private landowners installing windbreaks, shelter belts, and snow fences to better manage blowing and drifting snow. Dan is the blowing snow controlled shared surfaces supervisor with the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for this opportunity to present today and share MnDOT's experience with our snow fence program. And Kathy, can we take it to the next slide? There's a human toll due to snow and ice related traffic crashes. Our traffic engineering office looked at crashes over the last 4 years, 2020 through 2024, and found 18% of all of our crashes were tied to snow and ice, 198 fatalities. These are, life-changing, life-consequencing type events that can really affect families. And one of the opportunities that we've seen is where we've deployed our snow fencing, we have been able to see a reduction in crashes by 22%. As compared to those areas that didn't have the benefit of those snow fences. So these snow fences have an opportunity to help with not only mobility, but also reducing crashes. Next slide. One of the keys to a maturing snow fence program is knowing when and where to deploy snow fencing. And in MnDOT, we actually have a team of designers that this is their job, is to design blowing snow control treatments. And we look at existing blowing snow problems. We look at, has the land use changed in these areas? Maybe there's going to be a new roundabout project that's going to create a future snow problem. We get involved with our program delivery folks to look at upcoming projects and look at how we can prevent blowing snow problems after they're built. And then also, finding available funding to help solve these problems. Next slide. So in Minnesota, along our MnDOT maintained roadways, we have about 737 living snow fences. These living snow fences, many of them were planted in the 1970s, maybe some of them even earlier, and they're still providing function for us. We have 223 structural snow fences, and our structural snow fencing is the flexible composite rail type system. Permarail is one of the manufacturers, and we also have another manufacturer named Magnum Ventures that make the structural snow fence for us. They come in 4, 6, 8, and 10-foot tall heights. We also still put up the seasonal snow fencing that's 4 foot tall, put it up in the fall, take it down in the spring. And then working with landowners and farmers to do standing corn rows. And standing corn rows is our gateway to work with a farmer landowner to see, the benefits of the blowing snow. And it's our gateway to introducing them to maybe a future living snow fence or structural snow fence that ends up being a longer term commitment. Next slide. MnDOT has been inventorying our snow problem areas. We call them snow traps since 2001. And we've got about 4,529 snow traps covering about 2,179 centerline miles of roadway. And so seeing the drifting on the road is one thing, but blow ice is a little more difficult to explain. So let's go to the next slide. And why don't we hit play? So blow ice is one of these phenomena that happens after a snow and ice event. You can get a wind speeds of about 20 to 30 miles an hour like we see here. And that will pick up those snow particles and start moving them across the road, icing it up. This is on Highway 14, US Highway 14. It's an east-west roadway. The road profile is about 3 feet higher than the farm fields. And so the wind is actually working in our favor here, just keeping that snow moving across the road, but it is icing up the road. As we start to see to the left here, we're going to introduce on a curve a living snow fence and structural snow fence system. Our road profile is going up. We're going up onto a bridge. And this allows us to introduce the snow fencing within the highway right-of-way because the road profile is elevated. As long as the snow fence is 4 feet below the height of the road profile, the wind will work in our favor, and then the snow fence will catch that snow and helping to improve our driving condition. And back in 2011, our traffic safety office said, you know, Dan, if you want to reduce crashes, focus on the curves, which is what we're doing right here. Next slide. To be able to understand if we have a maturing snow fence program, we have to understand the past. And, you know, unfortunately, we don't have any MnDOT employees that worked back in the 1930s and the 1940s here that I can talk to about what they did back then. But looking at the Minneapolis Star Tribune, Star Journal magazine, they had an article in there, and back in 1942, MnDOT was spending $1 million on snow and ice. Of that $1 million, $180,000 was spent putting up this slat style snow fencing. And it was about 1,000 miles that they put up each year. And that accounted to about 18% of their snow and ice budget. Today, our snow and ice budget last winter was about $121 million. And we spent about $4 million in the design, installation, and maintenance of our snow fences. Next slide. So with the 4-foot tall snow fencing, it has the capability of holding about 5 tons of blowing snow. And we have areas of western and southern Minnesota that are more open, that have almost unlimited fetch distances. There we get anywhere from 10 to 20 tons of snow. And those 4-foot tall fences aren't tall enough. And that's where we start to introduce the taller fences, the 8 and the 10-foot tall ones to contain that amount of snow. And so taller fences do make a difference. Next slide. You know, back in the 1960s and early 70s, mechanical snow removal became more popular and, you know, trying to use brute force to open up our roadways. We know that this equipment can't be everywhere at once. And also, you know, having closed roadways is very, you know, damaging for freight and commerce and the like. And so what we've been looking at is where to deploy snow fencing in areas where we have to go in there with this heavy equipment to reduce the need to do that. Next slide. A teaspoon of salt has the capability of polluting 5 gallons of water. That's from our Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And we have found where we've deployed our snow fencing, this is along Interstate 94 east of Moorhead, that we were able to reduce our chloride or salt use by 40%. And that is a huge savings in terms of helping reduce water contamination and being more efficient with our salt. Next slide. In 1991, Ron Tabler, who you've heard before, he reintroduced MnDOT on the science of passive blowing snow control. And in 1991, he came to Minnesota. I had the opportunity to be there for that conference. And we really were connecting our maintenance office and our design community to work together. Because Ron Tabler said, you know, blowing snow isn't just a maintenance problem that you have to plow your way out. There's things that we can do in design in terms of, you know, widening the ditches, raising the road profile, adding snow fencing. These are things that can work in harmony and help our snow and ice fleet be more efficient. Next slide. And so with Ron's help and also with funding through MnDOT research, we were able to, this is a one-stop shop, snowcontroltools.umn.edu. That Snow Control Tools website is our one-stop shop that we go to get our design, our winter climate data that we use in our snow fence design. We also have cost benefit, a tool there to see if the fence is cost effective to pursue. There's also previous research projects that are linked there. This is really a good resource for you to use to learn about blowing snow control. Next slide. And one of the things that, location when it comes to design. And in our state, we've got 3 locations that are Siberia-like in their condition in terms of the amount of snow that gets relocated by the wind. And these are areas that we realize that, with this tool, we can really look at the location for determining what the appropriate fence offset should be from the road. It's looking at climate data from 370 observation sites across the state and using Dr. Tabler's algorithms to help us be able to interactively design. Next slide. But one of the things that we're moving towards is going from the 2-dimensional world to the 3D world. And in the 2D world, it's looking at everything in terms, as we see in the image on the left there, is flat topography. And we can see these snowdrift profiles based on fence porosity, but you're not seeing a ditch. You're not seeing the undulation in the topography. And so the image on the right with the 3D looks at what is the road profile? What is the height of it? What's the ditch depth and width? And start to visualize what that snowdrift will look like on the landscape. Next slide. And so we are currently working with Civil Solutions, an engineering firm out of Chicago, Illinois. And Civil Solutions is working with us to develop a 3D snowdrift simulation that would incorporate the design of the snow fence, looking at the undulations in the topography, and draw what that snowdrift would look like, which will be a really good communication piece for landowner engagement, as well as working with our maintenance community. Next slide. And so as MnDOT looks to the future, we're taking more of a corridor approach to blowing snow control. That's going to create a more consistent driving experience for the motoring public. Next slide. And so as we look at this corridor approach, we're looking at, what's the frequency of road closures, what's the crash data to help guide where we should prioritize our efforts, because we got like 5,000 snow traps out there. Where do we begin? Next slide. We also look at the labor, material, and equipment costs that are being tracked in terms of what's happening, what's being spent on those plow routes. Next slide. And then, we are managing the wind is what we're managing. And with the Maintenance Decision Support System, the MDSS, looking at the frequency and the vulnerability for where wind is a problem. And, as we get into the western part of the state, we're looking at upwards of almost 800 to 900 hours where the wind is moving that snow around. And that helps us see, where the greatest need is for snow fencing. Next slide. And so utilizing this concept, we're able to start to see which corridors in a MnDOT maintenance district would show up as being the most important ones to address. And this would be the I-94 corridor in this case. This is the areas that were showing up in red. This scoping tool really helped us to be successful in getting a federal Protect grant to get federal funding to help with the mobility and the transportation of this very important corridor. And we found with this Protect grant, we had a benefit cost ratio of for every dollar spent, there was going to be a $3 return. Next slide. In terms of an evolving snow fence program, we're looking at, we have 2 snow fence manufacturers that are on our approved products list, and that link is located on the bottom of the slide there. And that's Magnum Ventures and Permarail. And we're also evolving to using either a concrete sleeve or a concreteless sleeve, like you see on the right, which we don't need to use concrete, which speeds up the installation process because you don't have to let the concrete cure before you tighten the rails. Next slide. We're also, if you look at the slide on the left, the rails really are on the one side of the fence and the posts really stick out visually. And so in 2017, after working with our landscape architects, they really felt that if you wanted to improve the appearance of the snow fence, weave the rails. And so whether you're on the right or the left side of the fence, you have that uniform looking experience. And in talking with our manufacturers, they feel it actually probably makes the fence a little more sturdy to the wind loads out there. And so we are now weaving our snow fences. Next slide. We're also making an effort to get every one of our snow fences in the transportation asset management system, tracking where these assets are occurring, because Dr. Tabler used to say, the problem is lost with the solution. And so knowing where we have our snow fences will help with the transition as our workforce transitions, understand why they're out there. Next slide. Good fences make good neighbors, making sure that we keep our rails tensioned properly so they're not sagging. Mowing around the perimeter of our snow fences with establishment really helps control weeds and helps get more sunlight to the living snow fence to help them grow faster. Next slide. And then we are now, because a lot of our snow fences are starting to get to be 20 years old that are living, going in and rejuvenating them through coppice pruning. By doing that, it will take out the deadwood. Next slide. And the image on the left shows where we coppice pruned adjacent to where all the wood chip is. And then you can see the regrowth on the right there that has emerged. And then after about 3 years, we'll go back and we'll coppice prune the other side. And when you coppice prune, you have an established root system, and you can get about 3 to 4 foot of new growth as a result of this. So it's a good way of sustaining your snow fences long term. Next slide. And so as we track our snow fences, we spent about $370,000 on snow fence maintenance over the past year. And that would be the coppice pruning and the tensioning and tightening of our snow fences and mowing. Next slide. Looking for value added with our snow fences. North Dakota State University, we've partnered with them with a research project. You can see the link there for where to learn more about the research. And what they did was they constructed a 100-foot solar snow fence, which is silver in color here with the solar panels, adjacent to one of our flexible composite rail snow fences. Next slide. And what we found with that 100-foot section is that it was generating about 11 kilowatt hours of energy per day throughout the year. The snow fence is oriented east to west, and the panels are on the south side of the posts. And so it was generating 11 kilowatt hours per day. And if you wanted to meet the needs of a typical household, it's about 30 kilowatt hours per day. Next slide. And so with this test project, we did not incorporate the energy into the grid. We utilized it on site. We put it into the shed, and in that shed, there were these batteries with the inverter and the controller. Next slide. And then we used that energy to power the webcam out there with the weather instrumentation. But also, if you look at the image on the left, it was after a snowfall, and the image on the right, it shows the heating pads there having melted the snow. So it was really an active snow fence that also melted snow as well as catching snow. Next slide. So as we look to the future, look for value added. Maybe it is putting the snow catch area, planting it into pollinator habitat like we heard for bees and monarchs and grassland nesting birds. Next slide. Maybe it's to help reduce wind erosion, keeping that topsoil on the farm field and not in the ditches. Next slide. Or maybe it's for the beauty. That might be the reason for someone to want to entertain doing this. And in closing here, next slide. A maturing snow fence program is good fences make good neighbors, build those partnerships, use data to identify where to deploy snow fencing, secure funding to grow an effective snow fence program, look for opportunities to diversify income for landowners for snow storage, and then get that habitat, energy, and added value. And as Rick Nelson said from talking in winter ops, the best snowflake is the one that never lands on the highway. Thank you.
Yeah, great job, Dan, and appreciate the plug there for the Talking Winter Ops podcast. I think we might have a link to that as well. I noticed that you had appeared on that as a guest speaker here recently. So talking about your blowing snow control efforts. So yeah, great job on that. I appreciate you explaining the history and the planning that went into your program. I know that your program overall is quite well matured over the years. So it's cool to see how far it's come since its inception, as well as the cost benefit analysis that you guys have done to show that it really is worth its salt, mind the pun. So great job, Dan. Up next is Kathy Elanius with Wyoming DOT. She is Wyoming's professional geologist and a 31-year employee of the Wyoming Department of Transportation. The last 20 years in WYDOT's Research Services Program. She was among the last group of people trained by Dr. Ronald Tabler, who was just mentioned in MnDOT's presentation, who is known internationally as the Blizzard Wizard. She has presented to groups that have varied from local interest groups to federal agencies and to other DOTs and internationally as well. Kathy, I welcome you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jeremy, and welcome everyone. Go to the next slide. So the reason why WYDOT is talking to you today about snow fence is from this 2012 Clear Roads map showing the annual snowfall, and Wyoming gets anywhere from 1.5 to 13 feet of snow a year. Next slide. And over 1,000 hours of blowing snow. And if you look in the middle of that red blob with the white spots in it, I-80 runs right through there. Next slide. So WYDOT has been, well, the highway department and now WYDOT has been using snow fence to control blowing snow since before we even had paved roads. Next slide. Oops, sorry. So in 1971, Dr. Ron Tabler was hired as a consultant for WYDOT to help keep the newly opened I-80 route open. The first year it was open, it was closed more than it was open during the winter. It earned the name of the Snow Cheeman Trail for those of you who are old enough to remember Vietnam references. So Dr. Tabler's research has led to a resurgence in the use of snow fence, not only in Wyoming, but in other states like Minnesota and Iowa and Wisconsin and also worldwide. He also, the work he performed in Wyoming also led to the manual controlling blowing and drifting snow with snow fence and road design, which was published in 2003 and is still the go-to book for many of us. So from that research, it was determined, and we've seen this in some of the other slides, that properly engineered fence systems improve the visibility, improve road surface condition, reduce crashes, reduces your winter maintenance costs, and prevents drifts on the roadway. Next slide. So there's several things that we look at when we're looking to site snow fences. And we have a lot of wide open spaces here in Wyoming. But adequate storage capacity is critical. You need to have enough room to store the snow that you're going to trap with the snow fence. And additionally, you need to have enough room to trap, hold that trapped snow plus any plow cast you get from plowing the road. We want long, tall, and porous fences, and then they need to be properly located with alignment and placement to the wind and the roadway, the setback from the road, and then any openings. Next. So what makes a good snow fence? Height of at least 6 feet, 40 to 50% porosity, a bottom gap that's about 10% of the total height of the fence. Dr. Tabler determined horizontal rails are best, even though a lot of us are still using a lot of 4-foot lath fencing. And the most critical thing is that they're durable and maintained, because they sit out there all year long, not just in the winter. And you need to make sure they're maintained so they stay up. So in 2005, WYDOT started an asset inventory program with the survey of our snow fences. And we contracted with a local engineering firm, Tri-Hydro. to go out and collect the data on our snow fences. And while there have been changes here and there, right now we've got about 460 miles of snow fence on 6,733 centerline miles of roadway. And so next slide, the latest iteration of our snow fence management tool is the snow fence viewer. And so this was again created by TriHydro, who have been our consultants during this whole program. And we have the viewer was created in 2016, and it was used building Esri's app builder and ArcGIS Enterprise. Next slide. So there's a lot of information on these slides or on these in the viewer. A lot of it's controlled by the scale, whether you're zooming in and zooming out. And we've tried to get enough information on the fences that it can be a one-stop shop for our maintenance guys and any other entity who's using our viewer. So next slide. So by clicking on a fence, you can pull up a lot of information. Each fence has a unique fence ID number, and then a fence number that's just based on the milepost and the fence within that milepost. We also have it so you can get it tabular. If you look at the bottom of the screen, for every fence, you can pull up a table that gives you information on when we refaced it, repaired it, what crew it belongs to, the offset from center line, the bottom gap based on the first panel of the fence, the panel width, anything that we think that could be useful for the maintenance guys to know if they need to order 16-foot boards or 12-foot boards. Next slide. We also take photos of the fences at the time of inventory. This is one of our vertical fences that we replaced one of the Wyoming style fences. We have about 10% of our inventory now is these vertical fences, and they're located mainly along I-80. So next slide. We also in 2017 contracted with this University of Wyoming to update Tabler's wind and precipitation tables that he had created back in the 70s. So Dr. O'Hara used the PRISM data from Oregon State and along with some other data sets, and we now have a winter wind direction that we can show statewide. Next slide. And from that, we can show the wind at the fences and what part of the roadway they protect. Now, this is not an exact science because to go to each one of our, well, I can't remember, 3,600 fences is quite a chore with this. So this is just a modeled wind at the fence. And then it shows you what part of the roadway is protected. We also can show where the drifts would build based on this modeled wind direction. I don't have that as a slide, but we have a lot of information that we can show on these fences. So, and that's it. It's just a really quick and dirty presentation.
Yeah, that was really cool actually. The whole asset management piece is particularly interesting as far as the snowing or the blowing snow asset management goes. Question for you real quick before we open it up for Q&A, but if folks were interested in learning more about the tool or even deploying something similar, is there someone that they can reach out to about that?
You can definitely get a hold of me.
Okay.
I know TriHydro is a national firm, but the key part of all of that is you really need to know what your wind directions are, and that makes it, a lot easier to come up with your fence design and placement. So.
Great. Yeah, and I see Zach put your contact information there for folks. So, everyone, I would encourage you if in your state or agency you're interested in deploying something like this or just learning more about the tool. Kathy's, she's really smart about all this stuff, and I'm sure she can help you point it in the right direction. Let's see. Before we get into questions, I think they're all answered. All right. Well, Kathy, I appreciate your presentation. We have a few minutes here. If there's any more questions that come in, or if anyone has any questions, please do type them in, and we can get those answered for you before we wrap up. So I'll give a minute to anyone if they want to type something in. And while we're waiting, Peter, I did have a question I wrote down while you were presenting, and I'm sure that this is applicable to anyone, but from a statewide perspective, I know it's hard to be, everywhere all at once and understand where all of the issues are. But for folks who are looking to identify these problem areas and build their own program, how would you say is the best way to go about learning where the problem spots are and engaging with folks to get this going?
I definitely say it's your maintenance staff out in the regions or the county staff that are out there, even the plow drivers themselves. I've gone on many ride-alongs and had them point out areas, whether during storm events, right after storm events, and that sort of thing. But definitely, it's that when I mentioned communication, it was that constant hammering home that we're trying to find wherever these locations are, and some staff because of, say, like we're in Tabler's calculations where it says things like 35 times the height. That would deter a lot of people from presenting locations to us initially, and I had to get that across them. Just tell us where you have these locations. Let's get them mapped. We can worry about figuring out a solution later, but let's just find out where they are. And so we've been slowly building up over the last 12 years, all these locations, getting them mapped. And then now we have that where it's getting updated annually. And that's actually out there for our projects department to see. So it's something that, again, we push to them too, to be able to review so that they can start looking at pulling those into their projects, because they can then have something that they can layer across their 6 and 10 year programs and see where we have these problems and try to address them as they can. But yeah, it's definitely that communication. And I ask every year for that information, because every winter is different. A lot of us run on 5-year averages, for snowfalls and weather events. And so it's helpful to ask those questions over and over again, because each winter is different. So if one field might be a problem this year, but it's not the next year. And like Dan mentioned, we're also taking that corridor approach as well. So when we're looking at these corridors, if we start seeing locations pointed out to us along an existing corridor, then rather than playing hopscotch across that corridor, we'll just march down that whole corridor and address the whole thing. Because the last thing you want to do is to have a project go out and put one in place and then find out that after everything's finally grown and functioning, that, oh, well, now this other location that you skip, that's presenting as a problem. Instead, just addressing it right off the bat. It also makes the projects cheaper, because if they're going out there and the same same people are bidding on it, that sort of thing, they end up, it lowers the costs because their mobilization and efforts are less expensive by going down the corridor, because most of the establishment, at least in Wisconsin, is several years long. So then if they get the next project, they're already right there. And so they're already bringing all their equipment out and that sort of thing. So then it helps just move right down the corridor and reduce expenses. So.
Yeah, that was a great point. And plus by going that route, it reduces the burden on your maintenance budget too, and the folks can focus more on maintenance of assets rather than installing these fences. The whole idea of including these installations in the project phase is, I believe that it should be, the norm, because it's showing that the blowing snow issue is part of the construction process, like it's being built into the design of the roadway, which it should be. So I appreciate your input on that.
Welcome.
It looks like we have no new questions in the chat there, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for today. First of all, I want to thank all of our presenters. You guys had a lot of great information and showed different aspects of the blowing snow issue and how you've met that challenge and overcome it in your states. I also want to thank all of our attendees here as well. We put these things on for you guys, and the whole idea is to provide some innovative practices and really get the gears turning. So hopefully this has inspired you to look back and perhaps reflect on your own operations, perhaps, and maybe you'll have some questions or reach out to one of our presenters today. If you have any questions as far as the road weather management program, or if you want to talk about innovations or things that you're working on in your state or area, please reach out to me. My contact information is there. As well as, for future webinars, if there's a topic that interests you that you'd like to see, let me know. We're always open to ideas, and perhaps we can build a webinar around it. As far as program updates, if you want to keep up to date on those and what we have going on, whether it's publications or events or research, feel free to go to that middle link there, and you can subscribe for the Road Weather Management Program here at FHWA. I promise that you won't get a ton of stuff flooding your inbox. It's just the important things. And then we do have something there in the chat. Apparently the last link there doesn't work. Maybe we can provide you one in the meantime. But NOCoE does host these webinars for you. So if you're interested in registering for future webinars, whether it's road weather management or anything else TSMO related, you can go to NOCoE's website at transportationops.org, and there's options for you to register there. Peter, yeah, I see that you wanted to add something else.
Yeah, I wanted to express when you're communicating to staff as well, one of the biggest, I guess, hiccups is when that perception of what drifting is. And some of it is they think of large drifts, it's flowing over the entire highway and that sort of thing. Where with all of our plowing efforts and salting efforts, a lot of that, you don't always see that. We're coming through every so often, and so they're pushing back the snow. So it's difficult to see a lot of that stuff. But there was some great photos today and videos of what that looks like in it, and how those snow streams coming across the highway can create slush and turn into ice and eventually create those drifts. But we're going through there constantly salting and what have you. So it's helping express that across to the staff that are watching for it, that it's not about some 5-foot drift coming across the highway. It's where do you see that snow zipping across while you're out there plowing.
Yep, absolutely. And the pictures tell the story. So
yes,
yeah, I would encourage you, like Peter had mentioned, get with your maintenance crews, get with the locals that are familiar with the area. It may not be a 5-foot drift, like he said. Sometimes it's more of a dusting, it seems, but those areas can pop up even well after the storm's stopped and moved through an area. You might experience drifting days later, and those are the areas that you want to get taken care of. So thanks everyone. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or just want to talk about road weather. With that said, I'll let you go.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.